The drive was long, but finally, I reached the short dirt driveway that cut through the woods to the house I left a little under 4 months ago. Before I could even step out of my car, my parents had sprinted from the house and were both attempting to engulf me in a warm hug. I gladly returned the gesture to my mom as my dad began to search for my bags. "You brought something home with you, right, bud?" my dad said in his familiar deep but comforting tone as he crouched down to gaze into my car. "Yeah, a couple of things," I responded. "I threw it all in the trunk," I said as I reached for the button to pop it open for him. "I've got this," he said as he lifted the trunk open, revealing the few items I had brought home. "You just start telling your mom everything. With all her questions, it's best that you get a head start," he said with a chuckle. "Thanks, Dad," I replied with a laugh. Then, me and my mom walked inside. "Can I get you anything to drink?" my mom asked brightly. "I went to the store yesterday. I even picked up that ginger ale you like," she said with excitement. "You already know my answer," I replied. "I haven't had Briggs in way too long." "One ginger ale coming right up," she said as she shuffled out of the room. "Briggs is a local ginger ale here in my hometown. I don't remember the first time I ever drank it, but I have lived off of it for as long as I can remember. My dad likes to say that when I was born, they had to give me Briggs to keep me from crying 24/7. Since I went off to college, I haven't had any, and I think I was going through withdrawals. I'm going to have to bring some back when I leave." My mom rushed back into the kitchen with a cold bottle of Briggs and forced it into my hand with a smile on her face. The taste of Briggs is the definition of home for me. Just one sip, and I feel like a child again. This sparked a question in me. I knew that on my way in, something was off about our street. "Hey, Ma, what is up with the Thorns' house? It looks dead." "Oh yeah, they moved out a couple of months back," she replied. "I'm honestly surprised it took them that long. The Thorns are a family that have been in my life about as long as Briggs has. I used to play with our son, Ethan, before he ran away. At least that's what his parents said happened. We weren't best friends by any means, but we were the only kids on the street, so we naturally found ourselves in each other's company pretty often. We even rode the same bus back in middle school. I, for some reason, always remember that he wore a dog tag around his neck with his name on it. I think his grandpa gave it to him before he passed." My mom, not very captivated by the topic of the Thorns, quickly started asking me about college. "So, how was your first college semester?" she asked, with excitement flowing through her voice. "Stressful," I said with a sigh, "especially because I just finished up midterms." "Oh, how do you think you did?" my mom asked hesitantly. "Fine, honestly," I replied, before taking a sip of Briggs. "I'm just happy they are in the past." For about 30 minutes, me and my mom chatted about college until my dad came down from upstairs. "Your room is all set up, bud," my dad said proudly. "Thank you for doing that," I replied. "It's no trouble," he said back. "Has your mom grilled you enough yet?" "Basically feels like I'm back in class already," I said sarcastically. My mom sighed and shook her head with a smirk. "I'm sorry, I missed you," she shot back. "All jokes, Helen," my dad reassured. "But let's let him get settled in, and we can talk some more over dinner." My mom reluctantly agreed and let me go upstairs to my room. It had only been 4 months, but the room I had stayed in for the last 18 years felt new as I opened the door. This didn't last long, though, as my memories came flooding back as I crashed onto my bed. I was hoping I might get to see a white Christmas this year, but the more days that passed, the less likely that seemed. I don't want to say what college I'm attending, but let's just say I wasn't going to get a white Christmas there. My home is in a small town in Maryland, and trying to figure out the weather is like a roulette table. If there were 20 different options that were all equally as likely. Because of this, snow wasn't very common, but when it was not around Christmas. Despite the fact that snow was unlikely the next few weeks, I peered out the window in my room into the deep woods that surrounded my house. That's when something caught my eye. There was a red puffy coat that was hanging from a tree branch. As soon as I saw it, there was a strong feeling of familiarity inside me. I couldn't put my finger on it though, so I just continued letting my eyes wander in between the tall trees. With nothing else grabbing my attention, I closed the blinds and laid down for a bit. My mom yelled up to me that we were going to be leaving for dinner soon, and to my surprise, hours had passed since I put my head on the pillow. At the restaurant, we continued to talk about college, but I couldn't keep my mind from the red coat in the woods. When we returned home, there was a small amount of light left outside, so I told my parents that I was going to go for a walk through the woods. No matter what I was doing, I couldn't stop thinking of that red puffy coat. I thought that maybe if I went and got it, I could find the owner and possibly return it to get some closure. When I reached the coat, it became very clear to me that this was a child's jacket. I proceeded to grab it off the branch and started heading back because light was fading quickly. I'll examine it better inside anyway. When I got back, I quickly rushed up to my room and laid the jacket on my bed. I looked in the pockets of the coat and found nothing, and then went for the tag to try and identify the owner. I flipped the tag to see the name, and all I could do was stare. Ethan. The name was on the tag, Ethan, in all capital letters. I stood over the jacket confused for a second. It certainly wasn't Ethan Thorne's jacket, I thought to myself. He went missing when we were 10. In an attempt to fuel the thinking my brain was trying to accomplish, I decided to rush downstairs to grab a bag of chips from the top of the fridge. When I reached up for the chips, I straightened my gaze in front of me. Right as my hand touched the bag, I saw something that brought me back to my childhood years. Critchley Street, 2014, Christmas. It was a picture of all the people who had lived on my street when I was 9. I saw some of the faces of the older couples who passed away years ago, and it brought me back. Then, as if there was a light bulb coming through the photo, my eyes locked onto a boy, Ethan. This was less than a year before he went missing, but, truthfully, he wasn't exactly what caught my eye. My attention was cast on the bright, red, puffy coat he was wearing. My heart sank as I sprinted up the stairs to my room, leaving behind the chips and Christmas photo. When I shut the door behind me, I stopped to catch my breath, only to hear something on the TV that made me halt any subconscious action that I was doing. James Thorne. My eyes shot up to the TV on the wall, just in time to see the start of the rolling captions at the bottom of the screen. James and Ella Thorne found dead tonight in local apartment. I stood there in shock. This family was close to mine. Now they were dead. Once I regained control of my body, I grabbed a hold of the door handle to go let my parents know the awful news. But then I saw something pop up on the screen, so I halted my action and listened. Police have not yet released details about the state of the victims, but have provided a couple of pictures of items that have been found in the apartment. A slideshow of items occupies the screen. Bloody clothes, moving boxes, a smashed family photo, and a sticky note on a table that was clearly written in haste. For a second I looked away as I thought I had enough info to go tell my parents, but then I quickly turned back realizing what was on the note. The red coat. The red coat. The red coat. The red coat. I started to connect the dots in my head when my screen goes black. I rush to the remote to try to flip back to the channel, but nothing is working. It is pitch black. No, it isn't completely black. It's more like a dark room. I see a small, faint green light that reminds me of the light of my mother's diffuser on her bedside table. I think for a second, and then remember that my TV has a brightness feature. I used to use it to make the screen brighter when watching scary movies as a kid. As I fiddle with the remote, I hear what sounds like the front door creak downstairs. It's probably just my dad going to grab a bottle of water to drink before bed. On the TV I see my mom and my dad sleeping in their bed. I had forgotten that before I left to retrieve the jacket, they said they were turning in early. Then I heard another sound that I know, down to the pitch, my parents' door. I looked up at the TV only to see it open, just like I had heard. There haven't been more than 3 people living in this house since my last sister moved out 2 years ago. Who is in my parents' room now? I stood there in shock, knowing I should go help and warn them, but also in fear of my own life. Then, something steps into the room. It is the height of a child, but I can't make out much more than that. On the grainy black and white feed that I'm watching, my hands grow sweaty, and I can feel my heart rate fly up. I snap back for a quick second and begin to search for my mom's contact in my phone and hit the call button. I can see it light up on the TV and begin to vibrate across her bedside table, but it grabs the attention of the thing in the room. The child-shaped figure reaches for it before answering the phone. I sit on the other end, staring at the TV as quietly as possible when that thing stared back. I can finally see the horror that's in my parents' room. It has no eyes, but wide open sockets where eyes used to live. Its mouth is not only split from ear to ear, but also down the middle from the bottom of its nose to its chin. A dark liquid ran down the clothes it wore, which seemed to already be covered in dirt. Then the feed went dark. I stood in fear for a second, waiting for what would come next. Then I heard 2 large thuds, one shortly after another, like someone had dropped big bags of sand on the ground. Following this, I heard the creak of my parents' door once again, and then footsteps. The sound of bare feet on the kitchen tile floor echoed through the house. I flew across my room, ducked down, and crawled under my bed. Silence for what sounded like an eternity. Then, this time it came from the carpeted stairs that snaked directly to my room. My heart beating so fast it didn't feel like there was even space in between each beat. My eyes were fixed on the crack under the door when the light coming through was obstructed. The door handle turned and the door creaked open. I saw small, dirty feet slowly step into the room and stop right in front of the bed and in front of the red coat. Then something fell to the ground. It was silver and seemed to be attached to a chain. It was a dog tag that said, Ethan. Holding back tears to avoid being noticed, I continued to stare at the thing that is somehow Ethan when it walked to the corner of my room and sits down in an old rocking chair. I'm writing this part now. It hasn't left that corner. The slight creak of the rocking chair is a constant reminder of the abomination that lurks in my room. I think it knows where I am. I think it's toying with me. If you look outside and see the red coat, I'm sorry. Please send help. Update. About 1 hour has gone by, and I just got a text. I will get back on what it says. Text message from Mom. It's time to wake up. You have school soon. It is 10:09 p.m. I'm home from my Christmas break. It knows. It knows.